You are standing in a quiet moment that does not make sense to the mind, and yet your spirit recognizes it immediately. Long ago, there was a servant of God who found himself pressed into a cave, not because he was weak, not because he had failed, but because heaven was about to teach him something the storm could never teach. Before that moment, there had been fire. There had been wind that tore mountains apart. There had been earthquakes that shook the ground beneath his feet. Power everywhere, noise everywhere, yet none of it carried the voice he needed. Then everything stopped. No thunder, no movement, no urgency. Just stillness so deep it felt uncomfortable. And in that stillness, direction finally arrived. You are in that same cave now. This pause you are experiencing is not punishment. It is not delay. It is not loss. It is divine interruption. God has slowed your steps because speed was beginning to replace sensitivity. You were moving, but you were no longer listening. You were advancing, but you were no longer aligned. And heaven will always choose alignment over momentum. Beloved chosen one, listen carefully. The reason this season feels quiet is because God is separating your voice from the noise you have been living in. The world rewards urgency, but heaven responds to stillness. The crowd celebrates motion, but God speaks direction. What feels like nothing happening is actually everything being rearranged beneath the surface. You did not lose your fire. You were pulled away so it could burn pure again. You have been asking why doors slowed down, why conversations faded, why motivation feels different, why your spirit feels alert but your circumstances feel paused. This is not confusion. This is calibration. God is aligning your steps by removing the static that once distracted you. He is teaching you how to move without striving, how to hear without chaos, how to stand without fear. Stillness exposes what noise hides. In the quiet, false urgency dies. In the quiet, people's voices lose authority. In the quiet, you begin to feel conviction instead of pressure. That is how you know God is near. When striving fades and clarity begins, heaven is speaking. You were never meant to live rushed. You were meant to live led. There is a reason your soul has been resisting distractions lately. There is a reason entertainment feels hollow. There is a reason small talk drains you. You are being repositioned into a frequency where God's instructions can land without distortion. The stillness is not empty. It is full of presence. Chosen one, do not run from this pause. Do not numb it. Do not fill it with noise just to feel productive. What you do next depends on what you hear now, and what you hear now can only be received in quiet surrender. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 27, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." This peace you are feeling is not comfort. It is confirmation. It is the sign that God is near and actively working. The world's peace comes after problems are solved. God's peace comes before anything changes. That is why it feels strange. That is why it feels undeserved. That is why it feels holy. You are not behind. You are being protected. Had God allowed you to continue at the pace you were moving, you would have arrived early to places you were not yet shaped for. You would have carried influence without insulation. You would have stepped into rooms that would have drained you instead of refined you. So God pressed pause not to stop you, but to shield you. This is where chosen ones are separated from the crowd. Most people panic in stillness. They interpret silence as abandonment, but you are different. You are learning that silence is where assignment becomes clear. This is where identity is sealed. This is where obedience becomes more valuable than ambition. Heaven is not in a hurry with you because heaven trusts what it placed inside you. Right now, God is aligning your inner world with your future assignment. Your reactions are being refined. Your discernment is being sharpened. Your dependence is being shifted from outcomes to obedience. That is why this stillness feels serious, sacred, weighty. Do not announce this season to people who thrive on noise. They will call it stagnation. They will call it failure. They will tell you to move faster, but they do not hear what you hear. They do not feel what you feel. They were not called to walk your path. You are not waiting, you are listening. And if this message is confirming what your spirit already knew, take a moment now. Like this message if it resonates. Share it with someone who is confused by their pause. Subscribe to stay connected to what God is revealing in this season. Then, as an act of alignment, comment 77 below, not as a habit, but as a declaration that you choose stillness over striving, obedience over urgency, and peace over pressure. You are beginning to see something now that once remained hidden. The reason clarity kept slipping through your fingers was never because God was silent, it was because movement had become your language. You learned to interpret progress as obedience, speed as faith, exhaustion as commitment. But heaven does not measure alignment by how fast you move. It measures it by how well you listen. There was a time when you believed that if you stopped, everything would fall apart. That fear did not come from God. It came from a system that taught you your worth was tied to output. So you kept going. You filled every gap. You rushed every decision. You silenced discomfort with activity. And slowly, without realizing it, clarity began to blur. Movement is not evil, but movement without instruction becomes noise. This is why God interrupted your momentum. Because motion had started to replace discernment. You were doing many right things, but you were no longer asking the right questions. You were available to everyone, but less attentive to God. You were productive, but not always precise. And heaven cares deeply about precision. You are now realizing that some of the confusion you experienced was not spiritual attack. It was spiritual overload. Too many voices, too many options, too many expectations. Direction cannot survive in that environment. Divine instruction is subtle. It does not shout. It does not compete. It waits until everything else quiets down. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of focus. There is a pattern throughout sacred history that you are now living out. God often allows His chosen ones to move themselves into exhaustion before calling them into rest, not as punishment, but as revelation. So they learn the difference between human effort and divine leading. So they stop trusting their own pace and start trusting His timing. You had begun to confuse urgency with importance. Some paths only look right when you are moving too fast to question them. Some relationships only survive when there is no space to discern. Some ambitions feel holy only because there has been no silence long enough to examine them. Stillness exposes truth. That is why it feels dangerous to the flesh. In the quiet, you started noticing what no longer fits. Conversations that once energized you now drain you. Goals that once excited you now feel heavy. This is not loss of passion, it is refinement of direction. God is removing what was only useful for a previous season. What you call delay is actually protection from misalignment. When movement was constant, you could ignore small inner warnings. You could override hesitation. You could justify choices quickly and keep going. But now, in stillness, nothing can be rushed. Thoughts slow down, motives surface, desires are tested, and you are learning that some things you were chasing were never assigned to you. This is where humility is formed, not by failure, but by listening long enough to realize you do not need to force what God never asked you to build. There is a reason God did not correct you while you were moving. Correction often comes when motion stops, because only then can it be heard without resistance. Only then can it be received without defense. Stillness creates space for truth to land gently instead of breaking you. You are not weaker now. You are more aware, according to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 19, verse 2. Desire without knowledge is not good. How much more will hasty feet miss the way? Those ancient words explain this season with precision. Hasty feet miss the way, not sinful feet, not lazy feet, rushed feet, feet that move faster than understanding, feet that confuse desire with direction. God is saving you from missing the way by slowing your steps. You are learning that clarity does not come from doing more. It comes from discerning better. This stillness is teaching you how to wait without anxiety, how to pause without guilt, how to trust without control. These lessons cannot be learned while running. They must be absorbed while standing still, heart open, hands relaxed. And here is the truth: most will never understand. Some of the greatest breakthroughs happen before movement resumes. They happen in the unseen, in perception, in posture, in priority. When alignment is restored internally, external progress becomes effortless. God is not trying to stop you. He is trying to guide you accurately. When clarity returns, and it will, you will move with fewer questions and deeper confidence. You will recognize doors that are yours without forcing them. You will hear instructions without second-guessing. You will walk without carrying unnecessary weight. Stillness did not cost you time. It saved you from wasting it. There is a hidden truth about stillness that few are prepared to face. Silence is not neutral territory. It is contested ground. When everything around you goes quiet, what rises is not always peace at first, it is resistance. Old fears surface. Unresolved thoughts speak louder. Doubt tries to fill the space that noise once occupied. This is why stillness feels uncomfortable before it feels holy. You are not imagining the tension. You are stepping onto a battlefield where the fight is not external, but internal. Movement allows avoidance. Stillness demands confrontation. In motion, you could outrun questions about obedience. In busyness, you could ignore subtle convictions. In constant activity, you never had to sit long enough with God to hear what He might ask you to release. But now, stripped of distraction, you are facing the most difficult enemy of all, the part of you that wants control. This is why stillness is spiritual warfare. You are not fighting demons in this season. You are wrestling with surrender. You are unlearning self-reliance. You are confronting the habit of fixing, forcing, and figuring everything out on your own. And that battle is far more intense than any external opposition because it threatens your sense of mastery. The reason darkness hates your stillness is because it knows revelation follows silence. When you stop reacting, you start discerning. When you stop rushing, you start seeing patterns. When you stop filling space with words, lies have nowhere to hide. Stillness exposes strategies that urgency conceals. You may have noticed that temptations feel different now. They are quieter, more subtle, not screaming, but whispering, not obvious, but reasonable. That is how resistance works when a chosen one begins to mature. The enemy does not need to push you into sin, only into impatience, because impatience pulls you out of alignment just as effectively. Every time you feel the urge to move prematurely, to explain yourself, to defend your pace, To prove you are still progressing, that is not motivation. That is warfare. And the weapon God has placed in your hands right now is restraint. There is power in not responding immediately. There is authority in waiting. There is dominance in silence when you could speak. Heaven watches how you handle the quiet because it reveals whether you trust God's timing or your own instincts. You are learning to hold your position without needing validation. This is why God has not rushed to relieve the tension. Because this tension is strengthening your spiritual muscles. It is teaching you how to stand firm without feedback, how to remain faithful without applause, how to obey without reassurance. Many lose their calling not through rebellion, but through impatience disguised as wisdom. Stillness teaches you discernment at a level noise never could. You begin to recognize which thoughts are yours, which are fear-based, and which are divine warnings. You start noticing how often you used to move simply to escape discomfort. Now, you are learning to stay. This is warfare because your flesh wants relief, but your spirit wants refinement. As the apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 13. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. The way out in this season is not escape. It is endurance. God is training you to endure the quiet without sabotaging it, to sit with unanswered questions without manufacturing answers, to trust that instruction will come at the exact moment obedience requires it, no sooner, no later. You are not failing because you feel restless. You are succeeding because you are not acting on it. Stillness reveals how much of your identity was tied to doing instead of being. And as that identity dissolves, a stronger one takes its place, rooted not in performance, but in presence. This is where authority is born. The enemy knows that if you learn to be still and obedient here, you will be unstoppable later. Because someone who does not panic in silence cannot be manipulated by pressure. Someone who does not rush decisions cannot be trapped easily. Someone who listens deeply cannot be deceived for long. This is why the fight feels internal. The battle is over who leads your impulses or God's instruction. And right now, heaven is winning. Before moving forward, seal this moment with a simple act of alignment. Comment, "I will wait." This is not passive. This is not weakness. This is a declaration that you choose obedience over impulse, trust over control, and alignment over speed. Saying it anchors your intention and reminds your spirit who is in charge when pressure rises again. There was a man who believed he was moving in absolute clarity. His convictions were sharp. His purpose felt justified. His direction seemed unquestionable. He was educated, respected, decisive, and fast. Too fast. He thought momentum meant righteousness. He thought intensity meant truth. He thought certainty meant alignment. Until one day, heaven interrupted his movement so completely that his inner world had no choice but to be reordered. You know this story, but today you are meant to enter it. This man was on a road, moving confidently toward what he believed was his assignment. Then light, not darkness, knocked him to the ground. Not judgment, but revelation. Not punishment, but interruption. And when he stood up, the one thing he relied on most was gone. His sight. For the first time, he could no longer navigate by instinct, education, or certainty. He had to be led. Slowly. Carefully. Blind. That blindness was not loss, it was surgery. God did not remove his vision to weaken him. He removed it to rebuild his inner order. Because the way his mind processed truth, authority, and obedience needed to be dismantled before it could be aligned. His outer speed had outpaced his inner submission. Chosen one, this is what God is doing with you now. You may not be physically blind, but you are being stripped of old ways of seeing, old interpretation, old assumptions, old confidence that came from knowledge instead of intimacy. God is touching the internal structure of how you discern, decide, and depend. Blindness forced that man to sit still long enough for pride to dissolve. It forced him to listen without arguing, to pray without planning, to wait without controlling outcomes. For days, he did nothing but everything changed. Stillness is how God reorders the inner hierarchy. When your inner world is misaligned, speed becomes dangerous, influence becomes destructive, certainty becomes arrogance. So God, in His mercy, slows the chosen one down before releasing greater authority. He removes familiar tools so deeper dependence can form. You may feel disoriented right now, less confident in what you see, less sure of how things will unfold. That is not regression. That is recalibration. God is teaching you how to perceive spiritually, not just logically. How to obey without full understanding. How to trust without visual confirmation. This is not blindness, it is transformation. Notice that when that man regained his sight, he did not return to his old pace. He moved with humility, with precision, with surrender. His authority increased because his submission deepened. His voice carried weight because his heart had been reordered. God is not interested in how quickly you move. He is interested in how deeply you are aligned. You are being restructured internally so that when movement resumes, it will not be driven by ego, fear, or urgency, but by instruction. This is why God allows the uncomfortable quiet. This is why He removes the crutches you once leaned on. This is why you cannot rely on old methods anymore. He is doing something new inside before doing something visible outside. The Spirit spoke through the book of Acts, chapter 9, verse 18. Immediately, something like scales fell from his eyes and he could see again. Those scales did not fall off randomly. They fell when the inner work was complete, when obedience replaced resistance, when humility replaced certainty, when surrender replaced control. Your scales are falling too, but not all at once. Every day you remain still without forcing clarity. Another layer is removed. Every time you resist the urge to rush ahead, another adjustment takes place. Every moment you choose trust over explanation, your inner vision sharpens. This is why God is careful with you, because what He is preparing you for requires clear sight and steady hands. You cannot carry what is coming with a disordered inner world. And if this message resonates with you, if you sense God gently but firmly realigning you, take a moment to like this message. Share it with someone who feels confused by their pause. And if you desire to stay connected to these moments of clarity and confirmation, subscribe not out of habit, but out of hunger for alignment. Stillness is not sidelining you, it is qualifying you. The man who once rushed ahead blind to truth became someone who could see deeper than most. And you, too, are being prepared to walk with clarity that does not depend on circumstances. God is aligning your steps by first reordering your inner world. And when you move again, you will not just advance, you will advance accurately. There comes a moment in stillness when silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling intentional. You are no longer just waiting, you are listening differently. Your spirit becomes alert. Your thoughts slow down. You begin to sense that what is happening inside you is more important than anything happening around you. This is the turning point. This is where stillness shifts from discomfort into instruction. Up to now, the quiet has been doing hidden work, exposing, pruning, reordering. But now something changes. You start to receive. God does not shout directions to those who refuse to slow down. He whispers instructions to those who are willing to stay. This is why stillness is sacred, because the most precise guidance is never delivered in chaos. It comes softly, clearly, and unmistakably when your heart is finally uncluttered. You may notice that the instructions you are receiving now feel simpler than expected, not dramatic, not complicated, sometimes even uncomfortable in their simplicity. Forgive, release, wait, speak less, walk away, prepare quietly. These are not small commands. They are foundational ones. Instructions heard in silence are often ignored by those addicted to noise. You are learning that God does not overwhelm you with the full picture. He gives you the next right step, and He only gives it when you are still enough to take it without argument. This is how obedience is tested, not by difficulty, but by clarity. Before, you wanted confirmation from people. Now, confirmation comes internally. A settled knowing, a calm conviction, a sense of this is it. Without the need to explain yourself, that is divine instruction. It does not require consensus. It requires courage. Stillness trains you to recognize God's voice without external validation. This is why some instructions feel risky, because they remove safety nets. They require trust instead of proof. They call you to move before you feel ready, but not before you are aligned. Readiness and alignment are not the same. Readiness comes from confidence. Alignment comes from obedience. And God always prioritizes alignment. You may also notice that the instructions you receive often contradict your old instincts. Where you once would have pushed, you are now told to pause. Where you once would have spoken, you are now told to stay silent. Where you once would have chased, you are now told to stand still. This is not confusion, this is correction. Your old reflexes were shaped in survival. Your new instructions are shaped in trust. This is the season where discernment becomes sharper than logic. You begin to sense when something is almost right but not assigned. You feel restraint where you once felt excitement. You feel peace where you once felt urgency. These internal signals are not random. They are the result of stillness doing its work. You are being taught how to move with God, not just for God. There is a reason heaven waited until now to speak clearly. Because earlier, you would have heard the words but interpreted them through fear, ambition, or ego. Now, your inner posture has changed. You are no longer asking how fast you are asking, how true. This is when instructions become weighty. They carry authority because they were born in surrender. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 21. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Notice the posture in that verse. You are already walking, but slowly enough to listen. God does not redirect those who are sprinting blindly. He guides those who move attentively, ready to adjust. You are not being micromanaged, you are being mentored. And the more you obey these quiet instructions, the clearer they become. Disobedience dulls discernment. Obedience sharpens it. This is why small acts of obedience in this season matter more than bold declarations. Heaven is watching how you respond to whispers. What you are building now is not momentum, it is accuracy. There will come a time when movement returns, when opportunities accelerate, when doors open quickly, when decisions must be made fast. And when that time comes, you will not panic because stillness trained you to hear clearly even under pressure. Before that acceleration arrives, seal this moment of alignment. Comment 888 below, not as superstition, but as a marker, a sign that you recognize this season of instruction and choose to walk in the way God reveals. Even when it comes quietly, even when it requires patience, even when it costs comfort. There is a sacred order God never violates. Even when you beg Him to move faster, He always aligns before He accelerates. Always. What looks like delay is often divine sequencing. Heaven refuses to place speed on a structure that has not been reinforced internally. Because acceleration without alignment does not elevate, it destroys. You are beginning to understand this now. In earlier seasons, you asked God to move you forward quickly. You prayed for open doors, rapid progress, visible breakthrough. And some of those prayers were not answered not because they were wrong, but because the foundation beneath them was not yet ready to carry the weight. God was protecting you from a future collapse you could not see. Stillness is where the reinforcements are installed. Alignment is not glamorous work. It happens quietly, deeply, and often painfully. It requires honesty with yourself. It exposes motives. It confronts patterns. It asks hard questions about why you want what you want. And until those questions are answered truthfully, acceleration would be dangerous. This is why God slows the chosen one down before speeding them up. You are being aligned in 3 critical areas: character, timing, and identity. Character, so that power does not corrupt you. Timing, so that opportunity does not outrun wisdom. Identity, so that success does not redefine you. These alignments are invisible to others, but essential to your future. You may feel like nothing is happening, but inside you, everything is being positioned. Alignment often feels restrictive. It feels like limits, boundaries, and closed doors. But those boundaries are not cages, they are guardrails. They are keeping you on a path where acceleration will be safe instead of reckless. Think of how many people rise quickly and fall just as fast. They were gifted, but not aligned. Anointed, but not anchored. Visible, but not rooted. God refuses to let that be your story. So He teaches you patience not as a virtue, but as a skill. You are learning how to wait without anxiety, how to prepare without panic, how to trust without timelines. These are not passive traits. They are disciplines that make acceleration sustainable when it comes. Alignment teaches you how to carry momentum without losing yourself. You are also being aligned relationally. Certain connections have faded, others have gone quiet. Some people no longer have access to you the way they once did. This is not isolation, it is filtration. God is narrowing your circle because wide access before alignment leads to confusion and compromise. Not everyone can walk with you into what is coming. Stillness has clarified your values. You are less impressed by charisma and more attentive to consistency, less drawn to noise and more to depth, less motivated by appearance and more by substance. This is alignment at work. Your appetite is changing because your assignment is approaching. And yes, there are moments when impatience tries to rise, when you wonder if you're wasting time, when you feel the pull to just do something, but you are learning to recognize that impulse for what it is: not faith, but fear of being unseen. God sees you fully. Nothing about this season is unnoticed. According to what is revealed in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. That verse is not poetic comfort, it is structural truth. Every activity has a season. Movement has a season. Stillness has a season, and wisdom is knowing which one you are in. Right now, you are in alignment season, and to move prematurely would be to step outside of grace. Grace does not disappear when you wait, it intensifies. When you honor God's timing, you move within His covering, not outside of it. Stillness keeps you under divine alignment, where effort is multiplied and mistakes are minimized before they are ever made. Those who rush ahead may appear successful for a moment, but they often carry fractures no one sees. You are being spared that weight. Alignment now means longevity later. What God is building in you quietly will sustain you publicly when movement finally resumes. Grace flows where timing is honored. You are not late. You are not early. You are exactly where alignment is being finalized. When acceleration comes, and it will feel sudden to others, but it will feel natural to you, because your inner world will already be prepared to support the pace. This is how God launches His chosen ones, quietly first, invisibly first, internally first. When the moment arrives, you will not scramble. You will not hesitate. You will not second guess. You will move with calm authority because stillness trained you to trust the one who leads. Acceleration is coming, but only because alignment is being secured now. You are reaching the end of the stillness now, though it may not feel dramatic on the outside. There is no loud announcement, no sudden applause, no visible signal that says, "Now it begins." And yet, something within you knows this season has changed you. You are not the same person who entered the quiet. You carry a steadiness you did not have before, a calm confidence that does not need to prove itself, a clarity that does not rush. This is what it means to emerge marked and sealed. Stillness has done its work, not by adding more to you, but by removing what never belonged, the insecurity that needed constant affirmation, the urgency that confused speed with obedience, the fear that pushed you to act before listening. Those things no longer rule you the way they once did. You are stepping forward now, not because pressure forced you, but because alignment released you. What comes next will not feel chaotic. It will feel intentional. Doors will open without you pushing them. Conversations will shift naturally. Opportunities will align with your values instead of testing them. You will recognize what is yours without striving, and you will have the courage to walk away from what is not without explanation. This is the authority stillness gives. You are marked in the unseen. Heaven recognizes you as someone who waited when others ran, listened when others shouted, obeyed when others demanded proof. That mark cannot be faked, it cannot be rushed, and it cannot be removed. When movement resumes fully, people may call it sudden. They will not see the long nights of silence, the quiet wrestling, the hidden obedience. They will not understand why you move with such peace while carrying such responsibility. But you will know, and God will know. You are sealed with clarity. Stillness trained your discernment so you will not mistake activity for assignment again. You will sense when something is good but not God. You will recognize when timing is off, even if the opportunity looks perfect. You will trust restraint as much as action. This is how chosen ones remain unshaken. Do not underestimate what you survived by standing still. You resisted impulses that would have cost you years. You avoided alignments that would have diluted your calling. You learned how to trust God without constant reassurance. That is not small. That is rare. And now, as you move forward, you will not carry anxiety into new territory. You will carry assurance. You will not bring old habits into new seasons. You will bring wisdom. You will not react, you will respond. Stillness crowned you before movement ever promoted you. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Isaiah, chapter 32, verse 17. The fruit of that righteousness will be peace. Its effect will be quietness and confidence forever. That verse describes you now. Quietness, not weakness. Confidence, not arrogance. Peace, not passivity. This is the posture of someone aligned with God's timing and secure in His leading. You are not stepping forward empty-handed. You are carrying discernment, humility, patience, and authority refined by obedience. Those are the tools that sustain long-term impact. And if this message has walked with you through the stillness, if it has confirmed what your spirit already sensed, receive it with gratitude, not pressure. You are part of a growing community of people who choose depth over noise and obedience over appearance. If you feel led, like this message so it can reach someone else standing quietly in their own season of alignment. Share it with a soul who feels confused by their pause and needs reassurance that God is still working. And consider subscribing not for content alone, but to remain connected to messages that honor timing, truth, and transformation. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not stuck. You are aligned. And when you step forward now, heaven will walk with you not to rush you, but to guide you accurately. What awaits you does not require striving. It requires trust. And you have learned that well. You do not need a dramatic ending to honor what has taken place here. Stillness rarely asks for closure. It asks for recognition. Something has settled inside you, quietly, without force. Not an answer to every question, but a readiness to walk without needing all of them resolved. You are leaving this moment the same way you entered it, without spectacle, but not unchanged. What you carry forward is subtle, and that is its strength. You may not be able to explain it to others. You may not even have words for it yet. But you will feel it in how you pause before reacting, in how you choose peace over proving yourself, in how you trust timing more than pressure. These are signs of alignment, not hesitation. There is no rush now. You are allowed to sit with what resonated, to let certain words echo longer than others, to return to silence after sound. God does not demand immediate response, He honors reflection. The seed has been planted. Growth does not need applause. If this message stays with you, let it. If it fades, let that be okay too. Truth has a way of resurfacing when it is needed most. Nothing meant for you will be lost. And if you feel moved to like or share this message, do so freely, not out of obligation, but out of recognition. Someone else may be standing where you once stood, unsure why everything slowed down, wondering if stillness meant failure. You now know better. But even that is optional. There is no pressure to respond, to engage, to declare anything. Sometimes the most honest response is quiet agreement within your own spirit. Sometimes the deepest obedience is simply continuing forward with awareness. So take this with you, gently. Return to your day, to your life, to your next step, whatever pace it comes in. God is not ahead of you, demanding speed. He is beside you, guiding alignment. And when the moment comes to move again, you will know. Not because someone told you, not because noise demanded it, but because stillness prepared you.